episode 6, you guys.
Yes.
Sixer.
Hello, friends. Okay, I'll stop. Hi, everybody.
It's a gift, Tiana. You have a
Thank
gift.
you. The gift that keeps on giving. I have my yogi tea today. Here's our note for today, okay?
Good.
All beings be happy. I think that actually fits nicely with what we want to talk about, no?
I like it.
That does fit nicely.
We are talking about relationships and navigating relationships, changing relationships as well through this evolution in our consciousness. I think this is a bit of a gray area for many, many, many people, including myself. Yeah, I don't know. Have you guys found relationships are kind of changing? Things are changing, the way you talk to people, look at people, hear from people.
Well, I'm curious to know what your take is on it first, because you brought up the topic.
Okay.
And it's
Changing since when?
something that's stringing with you.
I think relationships always changing, but I think for a lot of us who are tuned into the woo or the spiritual, or maybe even just the science behind, I can't talk today, behind what is happening in our world right now, like our energy is changing, right? So there's this big talk of like, we're moving from this 3D consciousness to this 5D consciousness. Anybody who is watching our little thing right now is going to be a part of this change and this shift.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you're following any type of spiritual leader or spiritual whatever, not that we're calling ourselves that, you're going to be going through this shift. You're going to have things within you changing. You're noticing the way you're maybe responding versus reacting, or, relationships are changing. So, a big one for people right now is the whole, did you get the poke or did you not get the poke? And if you didn't get the poke, then you're not a good person. And I can't talk to you because you're single-handedly causing this pandemic to keep going, whatever. Okay. So there's been this divide in relationships. Now let's rewind. I have a few people I like to follow and listen to. The first time this idea came up to me of hearing about 3D relationships was from this couple named Eldora and Simon. I don't know if you guys follow them. They have a lot of really wonderful things that they say, but they're very strong-willed in their opinions around 3D relationships. And when you are going through your evolution and switching into 5D consciousness, those who are 3D in a lower vibration than you need to be okay with just letting go of. It doesn't matter if it's your child, if it's your parents, if it's your whatever. Basically, if they're of lower vibration and they're not treating you with kindness and they're not treating you the way that you feel you should be treated, be done with them. Okay. And so I remember hearing this and being like, okay, so my folks do things that hurt me. My folks have done things that hurt me. And I've, gone through working on healing this stuff. But how do I just let go of my family? Like, how do you just wash your hands with your family? Oh, okay, because I'm evolving and I'm choosing to maybe not engage in lower vibrational things. How do I just go, okay, I'm done with you, Mom, because you've put me through trauma as a child. And you've put me through this stuff as a child. Now I'm choosing to not engage. So I just wash my hands with you. Mm-hmm. And it seemed weird to me. Or having, say, one of my closest friends, we don't see eye to eye on the way this pandemic has gone through. Okay. She's very plugged into the narrative of everything. I have been more on the outside, kind of watching the way things are playing out. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do this. We're all trying to navigate it the best that we can. I'm not going to go crap on you because you've chosen to get jabbed or you've chosen to, whatever. But she's kind of washed her hands with me because I've chosen to not buy into the beliefs and the things that are happening. Okay. And so it's been really hard because, sorry, 1 second. Okay, go. Okay, sorry guys. Yes, there's one in the washroom, buddy. Sorry, 3-year-old problems, or 4-year-old problems. Anyway, so I'm like, how do I just wash my hands with this friendship because we're not seeing eye to eye on everything? Or do I go, hey, it's okay that you're choosing to do it this way and you're not at a stage that I'm at where I'm observing and watching and ascending, if you will, or awakening, if you will, or whatever you want to call what is happening. But I'm shifting my perception. I'm shifting my energy and I'm choosing to vibrate at a higher level. Does that make me better than you? No, it does not. Are you worse than me because you're sitting here and you're buying into what the government's telling you or the health officials are telling you, or that you need to get your vaccine, or, you want to tell me the sky is green when it's blue or whatever it is. Like, I'm not going to not be respectful and loving towards you on the account of us not seeing eye to eye and stuff. But there are a lot of people out there. There's a lot of spiritual people out there who tell you that you should just part ways. You know, it's like, oh, my relationship isn't working. You know, maybe my partner and I aren't being as intimate as possible, or we're not seeing eye to eye on stuff, or I'm awakening and he's not. Okay, that's it. It means our relationship is doomed. But does it? Does it always have to be all or nothing? You get where I'm going with this, right? Like, there are people who will tell you basically, if you're not vibing on the same level, it's no longer worth your time or your energy. Cut the person off and go.
Okay, so stop there. How do you feel about that statement? Because I'm totally triggered by that.
I was very triggered by it as well. So I had to sit on that for a while, where I'm like I said, how the hell do you cut off your family?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are all souls going through this evolution, going through this shift, trying to navigate our traumas, trying to navigate our akashics, trying to navigate our shit that happens in our life. I mean, I say it all the time. Yeah, I'm doing different from my parents in the way I parent, but there's still, I'm sure, going to be something that's going to leave a lasting impression on my children, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, right? Like, we don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you just cut people off because they're in like a down, or you're not jiving? Okay. So I don't agree with that, fully cutting people off. What I will say is, we can have cords to people, and we know this.
Yeah.
That you can cut those cords and change the way the relationship is vibrating and functioning, and changing the way you choose to respond versus react to the things that people do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean you need to cut them off? No. Now, if there's harm happening, if there's abuse happening, if there's bad stuff happening, then yeah, cut that shit off. You don't need to put yourself around that and put yourself down in order to keep somebody else happy. But you don't have to cut off relationships just because you're not thinking the same thoughts, or you're not on the same wavelength.
But those were the rules for cutting off relationships in anyways, right?
Yeah.
So definitely whatever. It doesn't matter about high vibration. So yeah, it definitely gets my back up when I'm being told that, oh, you just have to, drop that relationship. Or are you willing to let that relationship go behind so you can raise up even higher?
Right.
So I jotted down a couple of notes when you were talking, and I was thinking, okay, so like quantum touch or any sort of quantum healing talks about, in order to facilitate any sort of healing in someone else, you use your vibration to raise someone else's vibration. So are we really going to leave those people behind when inherently our bodies can raise their vibration?
Okay, so that's interesting though. Can you raise someone else's vibration? If somebody is not aware, maybe temporarily during a session, you can raise someone's vibration, but you can't change somebody. It's like that old saying, you can lead a horse to water. You can't force them to drink. It's not your job single-handedly to put energy into someone and raise their vibration if somebody doesn't want to put in a concerted effort on their own, right? It's like the whole healing thing. We're facilitating healing. We're not healing people. People have to have a certain awareness degree and willingness to do healing. Like, right?
Does awake really mean that we have to talk about aliens and talk about healing modalities and talk about abundance, right?
No, it's kindness and where you radiate from, right?
Yeah.
Egoic and in your head.
Because I think I've been seeing people come forward that are not having the same conversations as me, but yet their vibration has been coming higher, but unbeknownst to themselves that this is what's happening to them, that they are stepping forward. Because I do feel like that when we are vibrating higher, that we do bring those people with us, that we're not necessarily just going to have them like fall off by the wayside. They're probably going to take way longer. They're not going to have the same language as us, but I do feel like they're coming up, even though it's going to be slower. That I don't feel like there's someone in your life, like your kid or your husband, that if they're seemingly their vibration is not coming up to match yours fast enough, that they're not ever going to. I don't believe that they're not ever going to. I believe that they're going to come up because they're going to come and try to match you.
Well, and I think that it's no matter what, that's just where the world is going, right? Like, whether people are ready to ascend or not, or whatever you want to call it, wake up, lift their vibration. You're absolutely right. Like, that's going to happen whether people are ready for it or not. But there are still people who are in that lower vibration. I mean, you look at the war. Look at the war that's happening.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of people still in the lower
Sex
vibration.
traffic work happening. There's child trafficking. There's racism. There's a lot of seemingly low vibration, dark stuff happening, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. It's an interesting thought that I've heard from a few different people speak on it in a few different ways, and I like you, I found it very triggering for them to say like, oh, if you're vibrating 5D and someone else is 3D, you cut them off, and I'm like, well, no. I'm sorry, like I'm not going to cut off my mother because we're not seeing eye to eye on our thoughts. However, I'm going to work actively at healing traumas, healing relationships, moving emotions, and unplugging my friggin' cord from her so that when I am around her, she's not drawing off my energy anymore. And that said too, like I have a friend where that cord has been cut and just naturally on its own, it does seem to just be going separate directions. Do I have ill feeling, ill will, or anything towards her? Absolutely not. There's nothing but love in my heart. There's nothing but cherished memories in my heart. And I'm not even fully cutting her off. I mean, when and if the time comes and we're meant to meet back up, then we meet back up and you meet that where it's at, right? But it's just interesting to me where this meta world is going. And maybe I don't know if it's a modern day meta or if I'm just missing a point with it, but it's so interesting to me that people would say, oh, you're vibrating lower, so I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that is not like maybe that's a interrupt into whatever they were channeling. Like
or misunderstanding.
Yeah, I don't feel like that is actually the right thing to say in those instances. I mean, yes, I'm not going to try and wake the sleeping because we know how that goes, right? Like I'm not forcibly going to tell anyone my point of view. That doesn't work. It doesn't work with me. So that's not going to happen. But to say that you're cutting them off kind of leaves me with a sour taste. Like I don't believe that that's the human that I want to be, that I'm going to let anyone go behind. But I also believe that like, don't drop back down to their resonance. Like don't start, vibrating at their level, but to keep mine as high as possible.
Yeah.
To just, because I mean, really what's the point? The 5D consciousness is so that those things aren't going to bother you anymore, right? Like that's part of the 5D resonance.
Yeah.
And so if they're not bothering you, why do you even need to take action to delete anybody out of your life? Because it should be that it's not bothering you anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
So why are those people saying that? Like that's where like
it's interesting, right? Malfunction out of junction, I guess. Yeah, it's the other one that I hear a lot, and I don't know if you ladies have, but like through this awakening is people saying like, okay, your jobs are going to change, your living situation is going to change, your relationships are going to change. And like another big one is relationships between couples, right? Between partners, like romantic relationships. And it's interesting how many people I hear as you watch other people in their live chats and, people can comment and put their questions in, or even just people in your day to day, like how many people seem to have relationships kind of falling apart right now. And they're, oh, I'm awakening and I'm going through this evolution, but my partner's not, and I don't know what I need to do. And, we're not romantically involved anymore and blah, blah. And it's like, well, why do they need to change? It's, I guess, like what you're saying too, Jen, right? Like, why do they need to change or keep up at your speed or do things on your level? Why can't you continue to focus on your high something and show that way and shine that light to allow people, almost to give them permission to come up in their own time, right? It's like that saying about children. They're like popcorn. It doesn't all pop at the same time, but eventually we all pop, right? And it's the same thing, I think, with this evolution as well, where that's going to happen. But it makes me so sad how many people look at their relationships and go, oh, okay, we're not being intimate anymore. Oh, we're not having like the cuddlies and the dates anymore. Oh, our relationship is failing. And it's like, well, why does that have to be the case? Why can't it just be that you're both going through like a growth or a shift or a change? And why can't you just hold space for that to happen and trust that eventually you're going to do this, right? Like you're going to come up to the same again. And it's having that love and that respect and that unity and just being okay with holding that space. But in this modern world, in this modern meta, and especially in this time, there's such an emphasis on just cutting the cords of things and moving on if it's not serving you anymore. So how do you identify?
But you know what, even without having a meta conversation, we have been like told that it's normal to go get a divorce as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you're done with the relationship, when the spark is gone, you just like dispose of it, throw it in the garbage and move on. Like there's a whole different outside of anything metaphysical relationships, whether they're meta or not, or one of them is or one of them isn't. There's been such a play in movies and TV shows that when it's not working out, you just get a divorce. That's it. That you don't like. It's interesting. From a long time ago, we took a vow, and the vow was to stay together forever. That was the vow. And so anytime we argue about anything, I'm like, no, whether I like you right now or not, I told you I would stick around. So I'll deal with it till I like you again. That sounds kind of funny, but that's kind of how the way it goes. And I do feel like when you go through those phases, everybody's not working it out, everybody's, having these disposable relationships, that it goes through in cycles. Like I've watched friends kind of go through these cycles, which makes me think astrologically, what are these people destined to do, or what's going on in the universe that's pulling these people apart or having the cycles come. I just like birthdays coming up. When you find someone with the same astrological sign, it's so interesting how you find so many commonalities with those people. Like there's something to be said about that. So when whatever Pluto's over here, and I wanted to say Uranus, but whatever is over here, you're on, I can't even say that properly, is here, like there is something to be said about those things having pulls on our lives and functionality on those. But I do think that we've been taught, just like alcohol consumption. I only wanted to start drinking after work because I was watching people on TV shows drinking a glass of wine. And I was like, why am I doing this? Because I want to, or because I feel like it's part of how society acts? And I'm like, no, this is not how I act. This is actually not very true to me at all. So why am I trying to imitate it? Because I think their life is better than mine? Maybe. They probably have more money, but whatever. I don't need to imitate that. Like stop imitating what I'm seeing on TV. And that was a big eye opener for me, to stop imitating things that I see on TV. And that's not how life should be. And my life needs to be a decision of my life. And just like even when you're saying like, being told cut people off, what happened to common manners? Like,
well, right? and the whole saying agree nicely, or it's so true. I mean, it's. Do you guys remember there used to be a saying that was like, you don't ask people about, what was it, religion, politics. There's a couple conversations that were always off the table because it's so individual to the person, right? Like, maybe I vote Green Party and you're liberal and you're conservative, right? I'm not going to stop liking you guys based on who you're voting for. Like I could give two shits, honestly. It's how you're treating me. We have a good working relationship. We have a good friendship, and I'm going to vibe off of that regardless of what you choose. Maybe one is, atheist and one of us is spiritualist and the other one's Catholic. Same thing. Like, I'm not going to not like you based on the beliefs that you hold, but somewhere along the way, we've bought this belief that we all have to vibe the same. We have to have the same thoughts, the same opinion, the same vibe, the same whatever. And if you don't, then you're just not worth my time and energy.
Well, and that's where we've come forward, right? Because we're not concerned about what political party or what your personal, like, tiny little points of view or about something else. You can have that point of view. We can have a conversation about it. We can argue about it. But at the end of the day, we're still going to be friends. Whereas I've grown up with lots of people that if you didn't believe in the same party, that was it. Friends off, like, done. Yeah. Like huge arguments, people walking up, throwing their hands and never talking to people again because of different points of view. But be expansive, be open to new ideas. Like maybe my point of view about this particular party or religion is going to open you up to something you've never heard or never thought of before. Right? Like I'm open to those very intellectual conversations. Like I don't want to just be rehashing the same stories all over again. I want to be talking about what if this in the universe, or what if that, or what if, all of those things, and expand your mind conversations. Those are the ones that I can talk to you till 3 a.m. about, right? Yeah. Expand your awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true. So then I guess my next question would be, how do you know when a relationship has really run its course? When is it time, and when is it okay to say I've had enough and I'm going to cut this off? Or do you ever do that?
Does it really need to be cut off, or can it just move away?
That's what I'm asking.
I think I'd feel better personally because I'm not a bridge burner at all in anything of my life. I'm very kind. That if a relationship is just going to end, it's just going to end, and people are just going to go their separate ways. No hurt feelings. Just stop socializing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that does bring me to the question: is it bad to cut people off?
Exactly.
I think
isn't it bad?
And so we're each going to have a personal opinion. I'm probably not going to cut anyone off in my life unless they are inherently a bad person that has conned me and probably on their way to jail.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. See, and then I am like you. Like, I'm a peacekeeper. I understand everybody's got their journey. Everyone has their thing. I think I'm very progressive and accepting, and I've always been like that, right? Like, to me, if you treat me with kindness, I'm going to treat you with kindness. That's exactly how I'm teaching my kids to be too. It does not matter what they look like, what they sound like, what they eat, what they wear, etc. It's how do they treat you? And are they treating you with kindness? Yes. Then you have no reason to not treat them with kindness as well. You don't have to agree on everything. You don't have to like everything, but you're going to be kind because that's a common human exchange. And that's what we do. If somebody is abusive to me, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, verbally, you're fucking gone. I have zero patience for that. I would never treat someone that way. Therefore, I will not allow somebody to treat me that way. And I have had to cut off friendships that were like that because the person had so much opinion and trauma and wounding that they were not willing to look at. No matter what I offered, what perspective I could have given, they wouldn't have heard it. They weren't ready to receive it. And they said something so disgusting to me that I couldn't. I was like, I'm done. It was not ugly. It was not gross. I just simply chose to delete off social media, no longer reach out to. And it obviously was mutual because I've never heard from this person again since being pregnant with my youngest. So 5 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a time for sure. When it comes to family and stuff though, that's so much harder, right? Like, you can't just cut off your family. And I watch in my family some really interesting dynamics between my brother and my mother, my brother and my grandmother, my mother and her mother, my sister and our mother, you know, like, and I watch these relationships and the way they are. And when they try and cut it off, it almost becomes more static and messier and louder. And right. Like, it's so interesting it's like when you're fighting the natural progression of something, or you're trying to force something on that's not ready to happen. It just becomes, it becomes a trauma unto itself, really, really and truly it does. So yeah, I don't know. It's just navigating relationships in this human world is very interesting. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of, I'm into both. I mean, as we're talking about it, I think that it's beautiful to cut people off, and I think it's beautiful to be unfuckable with. So I think that a person should do both and be both.
Yeah.
I guess.
But that's the whole thing. I mean, if you're unfuckable with, I think that would be a part of being okay with cutting people off as well, right? I think it's in the way that you do it and being tactful about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So not being like, this to me, screw you, go to hell. Just being like, you know what? I'm actually, you've crossed the boundary for me and this is unacceptable. So no, we don't have a relationship anymore, actually.
I kind of look at being unfuckable with being like, you can be around me doing your fuckery. The same as, I mean, there's lots of things that are going to happen in your day that are shitty, or you're going to experience different things in your life that are crappy, and you can't spend your whole life trying to avoid all these things or eliminate them, right? You just got to live and keep following your own truth. So that goes the same with, you know, if I'm around people who, that are in my life that are displaying aggravating behaviors or whatever it is, that another person might say, oh, I'm going to cut them off because they are crossing whatever line. Maybe I would, like, maybe I don't need to cut them off because they can do their thing without it affecting me.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So am I going to make that choice? Or is it like, and we've touched on some serious topics there, are they abusive in some way to where I need to cut them off because it's actually negatively affecting my life in a way that the only way to resolve that is to remove it from my life. that could be possible too. And I think that I'm scared of neither. I mean, if I need to cut you off, no matter who you are in my life, if I've decided that that's what I'm going to do because it's for my betterment, then that's what I'm going to do. And I don't have to do it in a way like, it doesn't have to be a screaming match. I don't have to tell the person how wrong they are. I don't have to. It can be much simpler than that too. Or it could be that. It really depends on what I need in the moment and what my truth is and where I want to take it. That's how I'm going to decide how I want to do that. Like my brother, for example, I have hard boundaries with my brother. Because talking to him was becoming a detriment instead of a positive thing in my life. Now, did I tell him I'll never speak to you again and you're cut off and whatever? No, I did kindly say, like, you are crossing a line and I'm not going to have conversations with you anymore where it's one-sided, you telling me how terrible I am. And so we're not doing that anymore. And so we don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know. I like how you said it's dependent on what you need, right? Like in the way that you break that relationship, because that's, I mean, you know, if you really wanted to go out into the existential, I believe, and I know a few people do, that we choose the life that we walk into, right? There are certain things that our soul wants to learn in order to grow or have mastery in a certain something. And so sometimes we do come into these relationships and these extra sticky situations because they're supposed to be something. They're supposed to be this explosive break so that you can have that time to sit and reflect and think about it. Maybe stick something in an Akashic, maybe stick an emotion somewhere. And it's your job in this lifetime to be moving that, right? Because you're going to get growth from it. Like I know this one relationship that I was telling you of where, you know, yeah, I did get ugly and I had to fully cut this person off consciously, say, no, I am done. The amount of growth that I have had since that moment is huge, huge. And I have gratitude towards her for that, because clearly we were contracted to each other for her to show me this so I could look at this aspect of myself and have massive growth happen and self-love happen and show up for myself happen because of some sticky, heavy shit she had said to me. However, that's where I'm done. You gave me that. I have gratitude and love to you for that, but I have no interest in continuing a relationship. I'm not going to call you up and go hang out again because I'll forgive you and I'm grateful, but I will not forget what you said to me and how awful it was. Mm-hmm. That's something that will stick on my human. Something else too, I think a lot of the times we get so scared of the pain we're going to feel that we just either we suppress it and we don't feel it and we get sick, or we have the big explosive, screw you, get out of here, until that energy moves and we can get level headed and come back and converse and heal that relationship, right? Yeah. So you're right. I mean, where's the ending of the relationship coming from? Is it wounding, or is it because you've truly gotten everything you're going to need and you can break ways peacefully? And how do you know the difference? Well, are you loud and obnoxious and deliberately trying to hurt because you're hurting? Or can you go, no, you just crossed a boundary actually that's unacceptable and I'm going to cut you off and it's going to be calm and it's not going to be a big production and a big show. We're just going to let it kind of fizzle and I'm going to take my space right now. And if that space continues to grow and grow and grow and you just don't hear from each other, well, then you know it's a natural progression of this being over. And now it's time for you to reflect on what boundary did they cross? How did that affect you? Why did it make you feel the way that you feel, right? And what can you take from that? What growth can happen for you from that? And can you end up in gratitude for that growth being shown to you? Mm-hmm. Because it's just contrast, right? It's just, and everything's just energy.
It's so funny because when we talk about relationships, especially those really close ones and those, you know, family contracts and things that we have, I mean, don't forget about mirrors, right? Don't forget about mimicry around you. And I think that's a great place to start for people as they're hearing this conversation and they go, okay, great. So we can really take this either way. What the heck do I do now? I think it is stop and just go, okay, am I learning something in this situation? Are they mirroring something for me? Am I irritated with them because they're in my face doing the thing I hate about myself? And look at some of those, you know, answers before you're deciding 100% whether this person needs to be in or out of your life or that situation, and adding that essence of water, of flow, of maybe it's not cut off now forever. Maybe it's, hey, we're going to take a little detour and I'm not going to see you for a little bit and maybe I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not about these finalities. And maybe as we're ascending, you know, and coming into the new earth and all that jazz, maybe that's part of the evolution of relationships is, oh, it's not marriage and divorce.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole nother area we get to play in with people, right? They don't have to be either enhancing or toxic. There's a whole another way to interact with people. And it really comes back to living authentically and truthfully as who you are as much as possible. Mm-hmm. It really does answer all these queries when you come back to that. And so navigating relationships is the dance of learning who you are.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we're here for. Those are the keys and codes we have for each other. Yeah. That's, I think.
Well, I love the way this conversation has gone. So Tiana's definitely been talking about boundaries and putting up the boundaries and having, you know, those lines there. And then the mirrors, that's a great conversation. So now I want to bring up triggers. So all of these people are bringing up triggers for yourself. Now, do we set up the boundaries? Do we look in the mirror? But we should also be taking a look at what is triggering us and why it's triggering us. Right? Mm-hmm. Like taking a look. And that just goes back to being your sovereign self and the conversation we had at the start about keeping your vibration high, right? Knowing who you are, standing in your own truth, but also acknowledging that when something is there to trigger you, and of course, relationships are definitely triggering, that before we, you know, set up the boundary, take a look. Why is this triggering me? Why is it bothering me in the first place? What am I doing? Is it a mirror? Is it a reflection of something that I'm doing that I dislike in myself? And where can I work through this trigger before I'm ending this relationship? Because yeah, we do find that inherently we find this trigger and we're like, ooh, I don't like that person. I'm not going to associate with them. But when you do take the time to explore that trigger and find out why it's triggering you, you might find that that relationship with that person is going to be your new best friend, because they are showing you something in yourself that you don't like about yourself that you've been meaning to work on this whole time. And then have like huge amount of growth in these triggers. So like, it's like taking a look at all of these steps. There's probably 5 more steps to this, but we've shown 3 really good steps on working with people and maintaining those relationships and navigating through the evolution of your expansion.
Yeah. You know, and the thing is too, for anyone who's listening, I mean, if you're going through this where you have relationships that you're questioning and you're unsure of, and, you know, it's making you feel sticky and icky and gross, and you are having, right, the triggers, and you don't know where your boundaries are, and you're not totally sovereign with self yet, all of us have skills, tools, techniques, and tips on how you can move this, remove cords, heal some wounding, move some emotion, so that you can look at this from observer mode and be a lot clearer, so that you're not being triggered in the emotion. Because when the emotion is there and the energy is there, it becomes big. And exactly like these ladies are saying, I mean, you don't want to feel that sticky, dense, icky feeling and make that decision, because it's typically irrational, and you're not making the right choice, right? And what needs to happen. Sometimes you do need just to take that break for a second. Sometimes we do need to really look at, you know, is there contract in place or something in place here, or something for me to look at, so that you can move that out. Because Jennifer is absolutely correct. I mean, some of the people that I have done cord cutting with or healed emotions on, how our relationship has become now is unbelievable. And they're some of my most favorite people to be around. I mean, we had a woman in our course that we all did together that would trigger the fuck out of me. And, you know, it was so easy to put that on her, but she was just showing me aspects of myself that really needed to be looked at and integrated and healed and loved, honestly, loved more than anything, pieces of me. And this woman wasn't doing anything to me. She was literally giving me an invitation and opportunity to look at that stuff and see that. Right. And I mean, the amount of growth that I've had in that course, and I think on those triggers alone, is huge. Because there are pieces of me I would have never looked at before. And there are pieces of me I certainly didn't accept before. So yeah, I mean, if you're stuck, reach out, because you don't need to be. It doesn't have to be hard or heavy or any of that.
Yeah. Well, even, and within what we've already talked about, the limiting beliefs, you know, like if you're in conversations with people and you just can't see their point of view, like work through those limiting beliefs. Yeah. And being able to communicate with someone, do a relationship balance, and finally hear the things that you needed to hear from that person, it's leaps and bounds. You create a better relationship with them. Like, so powerful.
Mm-hmm. And I think when we kind of like don't look at that stuff and make an arbitrary decision of like, okay, I'm done with you. You're a fucking asshole, right? I'm out of here. You leave on the table whatever you were going to gain or expand from that situation, even if it's just understanding how to let go of people in a productive way, maybe, or something, right? And you lose that, and now you move on. You're just going to do it in the next relationship, and in the next relationship, and in the next relationship, until you gain that new understanding of self or whatever you were looking for when you created that relationship in the first place, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's such a good point, right? I mean, again, going with the whole contracting thing, you've contracted multiple people to teach you this one lesson. So until you figure out that lesson, you learn it and you heal it, it's going to keep showing up. You can't run. You can't run. It's going to be there. So you can spend your lifetime in misery and in battle and fighting. And guess what that's going to do? It's going to make you miserable, and it's going to make you sick, and it's going to manifest disease and autoimmune and all these other things. Or
I mean, doesn't everyone have that one friend that they watch get remarried and remarried and remarried to essentially the same person over and over again?
Yeah. Relationship after relationship. Yeah, I just watched a girlfriend do that, actually. And it was funny because, I mean, seemingly this person from her narrative was abusive, and her being our good friend, we have nothing to do but take her at face value for what she's saying, right? Because we don't know the ins and outs of that relationship. So we support the best that we can. And she made the decision to go back to this man. And I remember thinking like, oh God, here we go. Like, what are you doing? You know, but then I realized actually there was so much evolution and growth for this couple. They both found sobriety. They both found self-love. They both found their boundaries and their voice. And guess what? They went on to get married and buy a home, and she's running a thriving business, and he's doing well. And so where it was sticky and icky and dense and gross, and you kind of wanted to help her swoop away so she could just go do what she was doing again, she decided to step up and go, no, I'm facing this time. And now life is really good for her. And that's amazing, right? So yeah, I mean, the big thing when we're in these and you've got all that dense energy inside of your body and it feels gross and you want to cut it off because you think that's going to give you that instant gratification of like, okay, now it's done. You're out of my field. Okay, good. No, it's either coming on the next, or you're going to let the energy move out of your body, and then you're going to go and be maybe remorseful and show up with your tail between your legs. And then you're having to have these conversations and find the forgiveness, when really, we need to just get really fucking good at being like, I'm feeling upset right now and I need a minute to breathe. Mm-hmm. I need a minute to move this energy so I can have a conversation. It's funny, my husband and I had a bit of a tiff, I don't know, a while ago. And I've really, especially in this last little while since working on being good with myself, I realized that like I was always with him for some reason, especially it was like I was like Dukes up. I wanted to fight, right? So if we had a disagreement, I was in his face and we were talking about it. It was more yelling, but you know, and thankfully we do not fight very often at all. But recently when the disagreements come up, I've really allowed him to just walk away and take the space, and I've taken his lead and just stayed in my own space and allowed myself to breathe through my energy and move my energy and get through it. Because I'm with you, Jennifer. I took vows. I love my husband. I'm happy with my husband. I'm going to see it through it. And I'm not going to like everything he does, and he's not going to like everything I do, but we love each other. And so it's a safe place for us to be at our worst as well, and still know it's an unconditional love that's there, right? Mm-hmm. But anyway, so he walked away. And then he got really upset. And so when I went upstairs finally, because I was calm and I found the words I needed to say to get through it, and we're having the conversation, he's like, you know, everything's just changing. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you used to chase after me before when I'd walk away. And I was like, holy control drama. I was like, we're not playing that game anymore. You know, I said, honestly, you've actually modeled to me a way healthier way to do this. And that's go and take the space for a minute, breathe, so we can actually sit here and do this without yelling. Because what was the yelling doing? Yeah. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was making us both get upset. I would end up crying. You know, it'd be this big blow up, whatever. And then it's apologizing. And then we're sheepish for a bit. I'd rather take the space and move the feelings and the thoughts and the emotions and do what I need to do, and then come have a conversation so we can actually reverberate and grow and change and shift in this moment, than being reactive and explosive. But yeah, it's very interesting how we've been, again, like you're saying with the drinking, I mean, we've been conditioned to fight too. Like, that's just how it is. My opinion is my opinion, and it's the only one that matters, and I'm not going to see your side. And if you don't agree with me, then it's not worth the time, right? And that's just a bunch of bullshit. It's just not the truth. Whether that's your parents, your siblings, your best friend, your partner, whatever it is, you're going to have things that are different, and that's okay. That's not what brought you guys together in the first place, right? I mean, how boring. Cookie cutter, right? Like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The thing that stuck with me from, I don't remember even where I heard it or where it got brought into my awareness, but that love was a decision, not a feeling.
Oh.
And that we decided that we were going to love each other and not just let it be the in love feeling, because we know that comes and goes.
Yeah. That's another one in relationships too. Hey, I remember actually reading an article that said something kind of similar to that. And it was, this woman was talking about how she's had a 50-year marriage. They're celebrating their 50 years. And she's like, my piece of advice to everybody who's in a relationship and wanting the longevity is you need to understand that there's the ebb and the flow. And you're going to have times where there's a lot of sex and times where there's no sex and times where you're fighting all the time and times where you're just jiving and you're good and everything's fine. And you're going to have times where you're really in sync and you're doing this dance together. And you're going to have times where you're both on either sides of the coin, and that's okay. It's all okay. It's choosing, like you say, love. It's choosing acceptance. It's just being present and showing up and just knowing that no matter what turn it takes, it's okay. As long as you have that love there, you're going to be respectful of each other and respectful of where you're at. And that's a huge thing, whether that is your intimate relationship or your family relationships or your friend relationships, right? And I think that society needs to get back to that, because never has there been a more greater divide than what we've been living through in the last 2 years. And it's like, I feel, and I think we've talked about this all before, like, I just feel like compassion, human compassion, basic compassion for each other is out the window. It's so sad to me. It's so sad. And so, yeah, and that's what people are doing. Oh, you don't agree with me? I can't be your friend anymore.
Yeah.
Really?
Which kind of sucks, because where are the good conversations? If everyone just agrees with me, that get real boring real fast.
Seriously, right?
I want to hear some different perspectives. I want to deal with different types of people and have them be in all the ways they want to be, and then see how that makes me feel, and then do things about it or not do things about it. Like, I want that.
Yeah.
But even in the last 2 years, the thought or being able to actually have a conversation with people has been taken away because we haven't been allowed to gather.
Well, and I mean, like, I think, thank God for technology, though, through all of that, right? I mean, do you guys remember in the beginning doing all the Zoom meetings and the family Zoom meetings and like get together on a Friday night with a glass of wine with a girlfriend meetings, right? I mean, thank God we've done this pandemic with that technology, but there really has been kind of this, well, straight up, it's been a conditioning that has happened where the narrative has been, if you are not jabbed, then you're the problem. And us who are jabbed are better than you. And, all these unjabbed think they're scientists and they think they're conspiracists and they're whatever. And it's like, no, we're just trying to navigate this the best way that we can navigate this. And I don't crap on you for the choices that you make. So why am I a bad person for the choices that I make? And why can't we be friends on the account of the choices that I make? And how many of those friends have suddenly come out of the woodworks now that all the restrictions are lifted? It's interesting. But I mean, like, I think too, we forget that a lot of the decisions we make, if not all of them, typically come off some form of wounding, right? Fear, some lower density, lower vibration. And am I going to cut someone off because they're experiencing that? No, because I've experienced that in my life too at other times, right? I'm just choosing to approach this one a little bit different this time. That's done well for me. I only have a slight tick.
Kill me.
Relationship, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, Jay.
Okay. Yeah. So that's where I'm at on the relationship thing. Trying to figure it out.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of a good place to just kind of pull it together and just,
So let us know in the comments. Where are you at with relationships? What are you struggling with? Have you had to cut people off? What was that like? If you didn't, how'd you get through it? Do they pull at you, nag at you? Are you unfuckable with? What does that look like?
You need some help moving some stuff, because remember, you're not alone.
Yeah, definitely. And
please, weirdos there to help you.
Yeah. Give this video a like, so we can get out to more people and reach more people who need to talk about relationships and understand that.
Yeah, ring the bell. Like and
Ring the
subscribe
bell.
and share.
Share. Send this to a friend who might get something from the message.
Yeah.
All the
Send it as a hint to someone you want to get cut off from. Take a beat, yo.
Yeah.
Do a little women's circle discussion about it. Yeah.
And come join us on the Facebook page. It's Hard to Human.
Women's circle.
Send us an email at itshardtohuman@gmail.com and let us know where you're at. You're not alone. We've been through it. We're going through it. And we love you all.
And we will be going live in that group on Facebook. So if you want to join our private community and really talk about this jazz, find us there.
Yeah.
We'll go live on Thursday.